Libraries are haunted. Some libraries are in grand historic buildings, while others reside in newer ones. But what they both have in common is that they are held with enough esteem within the community to form connections with their visitors and staff over lifetimes. Tonight, we highlight three haunted libraries in Ohio: the Clifton Branch Library, the Portsmouth, Maine Public Library, and the Garnet A. Wilson Public Library. More to come after the introduction music. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another wonderful episode of the Cincinnati Cabinet of Curiosities Presents the Hometown Haunts podcast. I am your host, Kat Logo, and along with me are Christina Wald and Jen Kohler. They're in the shadows right now, but they'll come out a little bit later to chat. Yes, with their Ouija boards. Woo! I'm being sarcastic. We don't have Ouija boards. Sorry, everyone. But you can still contact us in much more mortal ways via Twitter and Instagram. You can follow us at Sin Cabinet Curio on Twitter and Cincy Cabinet of Curiosities on Instagram. You can also join our Facebook group, Hometown Haunts, and it's growing every single week with people chatting about dead stuff. Also, speaking of dead stuff, we're dying to hear your personal encounters with the paranormal and fringe history from your neck of the woods. Send it to the hometown haunted mail at gmail.com or join the Facebook group to share your stories. We're an official podcast that can be heard wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you want to see us while we're doing the show, you can watch the live video feed on YouTube. Find us by searching Cincinnati Cabinet of Curiosities, and please rate and review us on all those platforms so other spooky history lovers just like yourself can find us. Link in the show notes. For show news today, Happy Lunar New Year! It is the year of the rabbit. Or the year of the cat. It depends on where you are in the world. Both are adorable, both have whiskers, and I love them all dearly. Also, we will be at the inaugural Frogman Fest this March 4th at the Great Wolf Lodge Conference Center in Mason, Ohio. We have copies of both issues of the Cincinnati Cabinet of Curiosities Comics Anthology. Gee, you would think I'd be able to say that after saying it hundreds of times every week. But there are also cryptid posters and stickers available for sale. Friend of the show and author extraordinaire James Willis is a featured speaker along with other folklorists, cryptozoologists, and authors. And witches, I hear. There's going to be witches there as well doing tarot readings. For more information, check them out at frogmanfestival.com. That same month, on March 18th, 2023, we will be at the Highland Heights Comic Con at Northern Kentucky University Student Union. If you are an artist or vendor interested in the event, you can reserve a table on their Kickstarter campaign. The link is so long that I can't say it here, but it will be in the show notes. Also, we're working on issue 3 of the Cincinnati Cabinet of Curiosities Comics Anthology. Woo! So, Jen, Christina, do you have any news to contribute to today's show?
No.
I should say that I'm trying to get something started that we might have a student gallery at that show too at Highland
Ooh,
Heights.
that'd be fun.
Yeah, I've been talking to my students, and I have actually some students that are doing independent studies, and they're very interested in tables and stuff. So hopefully we'll have like a little student gallery there.
That'd be nice. This would be a very good first time intro into Comic Cons and vending and selling your artwork via direct sales.
Oh yeah,
Basically.
definitely.
Yeah.
It seems like, for career artists that more than being entrepreneurial seems to be the direction things are going. So this is a good way to dip your toes in.
Oh yeah, owning your IP and selling it yourself is definitely the way of the world right now. So it's a lot of work, but man, is it so much more rewarding to do. So
that's very true. That's very
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
Not that we don't love our clients, but
No.
it is nice to do your own IP too.
Yes, it is very nice to do your own IP and control it and all that. It's So much business. And everyone, I can hear all of our listeners, their eyes rolling to the back of their head going, we want to hear about ghosts. We don't want to hear about business strategies for small entrepreneurs.
I do.
Oh,
Well,
well, Jen, we'll grab a cup of coffee and visit at a bookstore and do strategies sometime.
I think we still need to do that book of the month club or something.
We do.
I think that's a great idea.
And our first book of the month has been moved, but that was Greg Hand's book from last week. And also thank you, Greg Hand, for the wonderful shout out via Reddit that the Hometown Haunts has local urban legends sewn up for the Cincinnati region. So it was a wonderful little review that he didn't know that I recorded.
In the most loving way, though.
It was more of a, I'm just scrolling through Reddit as you do, and whenever in the r/Cincinnati forum anything about urban legends pops up, it's a saved tab immediately just to see if we can find any more information from somebody in the area just talking about it. I'm giving away my secrets here. And Greg is always, he or Fluke Skywalker are, I swear, the most tagged people on our Reddit threads for Cincinnati.
Interesting.
Oh yeah. And they respond. That's why. And Greg responded, and his response was, well, I know urban legends and ghost stories, but the gals over at Hometown Haunts has this sewn up. Like,
Ooh.
we know our stuff. I feel approved by Greg Hand, which is a great honor, because he is definitely in the know about all things history in Cincinnati. So tonight's episode was inspired by our travels last month throughout the Cincinnati area. I like how we're able to start traveling again, because definitely the legend tripping, to use Jeff Belanger's term for it, is something I dearly love to do. I love visiting all these locations. I guess dark tourism is also what it's called. But when we were in Burnett Woods, we were freezing. Going hiking around, and Christina, Jen, you had gone there first to use the restroom before we met up, and then all of us were freezing, and you're like, why don't we go back to the library? And I'm like, sure, I have not seen this library. And Christina, you agreed, and you used to live around there too, so we got a little mini tour.
A block away. I lived on Brookline over there in a house. I would pass that house almost every day going home.
Yeah.
Or library now. It was
a library.
Fraternity house back then.
Yeah, it was a fraternity house for a really long time. I was surprised.
Yes. Actually, my dad was in that fraternity, so.
Oh, wow. Good fraternity? Bad fraternity?
I think it depends on the school.
Aren't they all bad?
No, not all of them. Like, not all sororities and fraternities are bad. Like, I was part of the knife and fork sorority, as I mentioned while we were walking through the woods. What I mean by that is that we didn't have an actual house. We always had to meet at restaurants. So we were the knife and fork sorority because we always had to meet in eating establishments because there were so many of us. And also we ate food.
Yum.
I don't know where we're going with that, but yeah. Yummy.
Yummy.
But yeah, not every sorority and fraternity have houses either. They're expensive to keep up.
That's true. But the thing about this particular fraternity house is its history before the fraternity is probably even more interesting.
Oh yeah, it's far more interesting. So also, I think this should be a good episode for all listeners to be able to enjoy the spookiness of it, because it's just wonderful, spooky folklore stories of ghosts. No descriptions of how people became ghosts. So this is I'm going to say, flagged green for everyone to enjoy. That's rare, I think, anymore.
We need like a rating system with skulls.
Here we go. This is a one skull show. Maybe we should do the entire skeleton. It's just,
that's a good idea.
Yeah, the entire skeleton is this is a red flag. There's a lot of stuff going on. This one's just the bitty toes.
Should they be colored skeletons, like a green, yellow, red thing?
That's a Grateful Dead thing.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I forgot about that.
We'll go with anatomy. Could we go with anatomy? This is a toe bone episode.
This is a funny bone episode.
This is a funny bone episode. Yeah, it's good for everyone. It's a funny bone episode. All right, everyone.
It could be the
Ah,
smiling skull or the flaming skull.
Oh, there you go.
there we go. Yeah,
I mean, we do have
Natty.
Natty.
Yeah, bring Natty back into this.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah. So, okay, so a smiling Natty.
Well, skulls are always technically smiling, but
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yeah. my
Grinning.
little my rack of skulls just keeps growing every week. There's a new one that just appears.
I know.
Yeah. So, okay. So on to tonight's funny bone smiling natty episode of haunted libraries. Um, so I've only heard about this place in books. I read about them. And then we had the opportunity to go because it's literally right across the park from Burnett Woods, which makes sense why it's called Parkview Manor. I was just like, why is it called Parkview Manor? Oh, sometimes I'm dumb. So anyway,
Just spacey, not
just
dumb.
spacey, maybe
Yeah.
slightly flaky. Did not put it together until you're standing at the corner of Brookline and Jefferson, and you're just like, aha, yeah, I get it now. So I'm getting into my little script here. One of the most beautiful libraries in Cincinnati is the Clifton branch of the Cincinnati and Hamilton County Public Library. It sits on the corner of Brookline and Jefferson Avenues across from Burnett Woods, as we were just talking about. What brought us to the library was to warm ourselves up and use the facilities during our adventure hiking around Burnett Woods last December, but after talking to the librarians there, we discovered that they had their own resident ghost floating around the bookcases. Don't worry, she's not scary or startling, but she seems to have been in the building for a while and seen a thing or two, especially since it used to be a fraternity house. Yeah. So the house, which just mentioned is called Parkview Manor, was built in 1895 as one of the last projects by famed Cincinnati architect Samuel Hannaford. Parkview Manor was the home of infamous 19th century political influencer George Barnsdale Boss Cox and his wife Carolyn Schill Cox. The mansion is a beautiful example of Italian architecture built in limestone. Both George and Caroline died in the house. George had of a stroke in 1916 and Caroline of pneumonia in 1938, and they had no children. Also, Samuel Hannaford is famous for building so many buildings around Cincinnati. We probably could take a Hannaford tour of Cincinnati, but most notably the Cincinnati Music Hall and also our City Hall. For 58 years, from 1949 to 2007, the mansion was occupied by the Pi Kappa Alpha fraternity who left. Christina, did I say that one right?
Pi Kappa Alpha, Pike. They're
Okay.
called Pikes.
Pikes. All right. The Pikes who lived there, who left the historical fixtures of the building intact, which is like a big yay for all of us who are just historical architecture nerds. In 2010, the library was purchased and gifted to the Cincinnati and Hamilton County Public Library and was painfully restored by the architecture firm McClory and Savage. The firm restored the original painted glass, fireplaces, mirrors, windows, and the huge staircase that you cannot miss when you walk into the building, all to their former glory during the Cox years. The former solarium is now the enchanting children's reading nook, while the basement was transformed into a computer center, meeting rooms, and teen space. The first floor, once made up of the dining room, front men's and women's parlors, kitchen, and carriage court, now have a bulk of the library books and DVD stacks. The carriage gate, the carriage court, of where the carriages and cars drove up to the house once upon a time, retains its stone structure but is now an enclosed reading space. While walking up the stately staircase to the second floor where the staff offices and extra restrooms are, you pass the large painted windows and those really remarkable, what were they, mantles, Jen? Like old fireplace mantles and other display cases?
Mirrors. I think one, it looked like a gigantic sideboard.
Yeah.
Sideboard. I don't know if it would have been in a dining room maybe, or
Right. I
A
think it
sitting
was
room?
in the
Okay.
dining room.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they have them intact. They're no longer in the actual stacks now, but they're upstairs, and they had wonderful depictions carved on them of green men, which are a folklore character from Ireland and Celtic belief. So I'm trying to remember my green man correctly. So you see them a lot. There's that leafy bearded man that you'll see. Like I have him on my flower pots outside, but you'll see him in anywhere where there's like gardens or somebody who's a big gardener. You'll see that green man carved somewhere in their house or on their property.
Would Bacchus be a green man?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
So
I associate him more with British pagan traditions than
Then Greek mythology.
yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
but they kind of did, thanks to the Romans, kind of get their lines got blurred a little bit.
Yeah.
Although this was kind of, from what I'm reading here, it's pagan traditions related to tree worship.
Yeah.
Mm.
I thought it was one of the reasons why we have Christmas trees was originally for Yule. You would bring in branches of trees to save them for the winter so the green man can continue into spring. So, and then
okay.
of course that was commandeered as a
Oy.
Christmas tree. But originally they weren't spruces that we brought into homes. They were just sprigs of different types of plants. And the entire point was to save anything green spirits to spring, because this is the winter is the season of death. Things die and hibernate, and you don't want your green men to do that. So, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. That's my what I remember off the top of my head.
They're also
Well,
fun to draw.
They are very fun to
Yeah.
draw.
They're cool looking.
Yes. So we did, while we were there warming up and doing an impromptu tour, one of the librarians did say that they had a ghost. And it was very nice of them to actually talk about them. And it was not a scary ghost at all. It was, we were in the children's room, and the children's book room, I should say. And they were just mentioning what happens in the building. And it's not every day, it's not a very common occurrence, but one of them, Jen, you mentioned it was music that would be playing throughout the house that has no origin, that has startled a few people, including the workmen who were working on this house when it was being restored. The elevator likes to summon itself, which is strange because elevators are not supposed to be doing that. And then they have books that will get thrown off of the stacks and found feet away from where they should be landing. Physics should say it should just fall, but they'll find them good 3 or 4 feet away in different parts of the building. So yeah, it was a neat building. Shall I share my ghost that I found there or ran into?
Yes.
Okay.
Please.
I didn't want to mention it in the middle of everything. I sound like my son. But it's really weird to like turn to you two and go, hey, there's a lady on the staircase, when there were clearly like visitors and also the librarian standing right there watching us. And I'm like, no, that's super. My confidence level just.
You could just whisper, hey, there's a ghost there.
Everyone could have heard it because we
okay.
were standing in the middle of the building.
All right.
So when and I will be honest, I kind of ran past her because we had to use the restroom so bad that and the free restrooms are upstairs. But I start up the staircase, and it's a very well preserved staircase with that large 40-foot stained glass window or painted window on the
landing.
the landing. And standing at that landing, staring at the stained glass window or the painted glass window, was a woman who was easily roughly my age, slightly older. She looked slightly rougher, I guess. She had more wrinkles than I do. But anyway, she had dark-ish brown hair pulled up into a really intricate bun. But what struck me was she was wearing a really long dress with a bustle that was white with a whole bunch of lace. and I run kind of by her, and I'm like, "Oh, hey, you're related to Cox somehow, but I need to use the restroom, so bye." And when I came back out, she was gone, and she when I looked her up, it's basically the spitting image of Caroline.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
when I saw her in profile, and the photos that they have available of her are not in profile, it's her looking at the camera. But definitely the bustle dress that she was wearing with a V-neck collar with lace, which was a high collar as well. It just had that um, lace work that makes a V in front of you. Very 1890s. It was like she was showing what she looked like when she moved in, basically. And she lived there her entire most of her life. Died in the second floor in one of those rooms that the staff now use as office space.
Aw.
So, and also is where he died too. And they had no children. So
I wonder what she thinks of it now.
she's very happy. I think she's
Okay.
the one that actually is moving stuff around at the here.
Mhm.
But she's not startling anyone. She doesn't seem mad. I think she's just happy that the boys aren't in the building anymore.
Yeah, I
Not
was
that they
gonna
were
say,
ever bad. Hmm?
Yeah.
there probably were bad things that happened.
I mean, there were bad things. They didn't outright destroy the house. They
True,
respected
true.
the house. So she wasn't like cranky when I ran into her.
Mhm,
And it wasn't a residual spirit either. Like she was walking around
mhm.
kind of looking at things. But yeah, she seems to be a pretty chill spirit and quite happy with what content, I should say, with what the building's been turned into now.
Mhm.
She's not mad at all.
It's too bad we don't know anybody that was a fraternity brother that lived there at the
Mhm.
during
I
its.
do.
Do you?
Yeah,
Well,
one
your
of my
dad.
Oh,
yeah, my
well.
dad didn't live there.
Ah.
He actually was a pike at up at Case Western Reserve up in Cleveland, but then
Oh,
my
okay.
parents moved down and got married, and I think he used to play pool there. Mom said that he never lived there, but he used to play pool there a lot.
Did
Hmm.
you say you would go to
But
parties there?
yeah, I went to at least eight. I remember one party there. I think I was at one party there. And so I got to see the very top, like because we got a tour of the whole building. So I was at a party there, but also I had a classmate that went there.
Are
I
you
don't know if
still
he lived in the house, but
okay?
he was in that fraternity in the 80s.
I would love to hear if they had any ghost
Yeah,
stories from there.
yeah.
Because I finding like libraries are interesting in that they'll either really go hard on their hauntings and say, yes, we're haunted, like the Willard Library,
Mhm.
or they won't so much, but they'll willingly tell you about it when you ask, like
Hmm.
with Clifton Branch, where I just
Mhm.
directly asked, I said, is this place haunted?
Mhm.
And then we got stories.
Yeah.
But and they're not, as I keep reminding people, ghosts are not like these huge supernatural beings that are going to make the walls bleed. They're really mundane, especially with how they talk to us, because they also were human at one point. So playing music, like she's sharing her favorite music with the people that work there. She's like, I love this. I want to listen to it. You can listen to it too. And
I'd love to know what that music is.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's that would be really cool. So I wonder if they'll ever let anyone investigate the building for a paranormal investigation. That would be interesting. I'm
That would
sure
be.
it would have to be during like a winter or Thanksgiving break or summer break when there isn't as much student activity.
Mhm.
But because I can imagine since that entire neighborhood is apartments where I think students and faculty live, it probably gets loud, especially
Yeah.
during football games.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. All right. So, moving on to our next location. This one, have any of us been to this one? I've been to Carnegie Libraries before, but not specifically this one.
I don't
All
think
right.
so.
So this is the Portsmouth Main Library in Scioto County. Located east of Cincinnati is the historic Ohio River port town of Portsmouth. The Portsmouth Public Library traces its history to 1831, where a small library opened at the corner of Market and Front Streets, but it didn't stay open for long. In 1879, the Portsmouth City School Board donated a building at the corner of 5th and Court Street to be used as a public library. Colonel James Warden was the first librarian at this location, and he grew the library's collection to 5,000 volumes by 1881. In 1902, Andrew Carnegie donated $50,000 to build a new library with, and that's a little dude, library with the solicitation of Henry A. Lorberg. The new Portsmouth Library opened on February 1st, 1906 on Gallia Street and is still used to this day. The architecture stays true to numerous Carnegie libraries that dot the country, even though the library received renovations and extensions in 1971 and 1995. And for all of you listening, that small child's voice was my little dude. It is not a ghost. It is protesting bath time. Anyway, local legend has it that a woman by the name of Grace is said to haunt the balcony area of the library, which is now closed to the public. Grace is believed to be a former employee or a person, just a random member of the public, who fell to her death from the library balcony and has been witnessed by staff wandering the area ever since. The second ghost has been witnessed roaming the halls of the library. In this case, it is that of a homeless man who died in the library or around the library, according to legend. In life, this man was said to visit the library frequently, and now his ghost is sometimes seen along the stacks. Lights go on and off by themselves, and books are mysteriously rearranged. Both Grace and the old man keep to the original 1906 portion of the library and do not frequent the newer wing additions to the building. But just know that you are never truly alone while visiting the Portsmouth Main Public Library. That is kind of sweet. It's like a mix of Waverly Hills and a few haunted opera houses here in Ohio.
It seems like a lot of libraries are repurposed buildings. So, and houses, and especially if you drive around Westwood in particular, there's some really beautiful old buildings that are libraries. And so I wonder, if some of them have different happenings. So if you know of any, there are so many library branches in town, let us know.
Oh, yeah.
There was a Carnegie Library for sale in somewhere in Indiana last year, and I'm like, I really wish I could have bought it, and I've been following them on Instagram as they're doing their renovations, and it is a cool old building, and it's just, I think they're going to turn it into an event center. And I was just like, man, I'd want that and turn it into an art gallery or
I found it.
Art space. Yeah. What's the name of it?
So this is the former Carnegie Library in Kendallville, Indiana. And it used to be the Kendallville Public Library. It was on the market for $250,000 and is one of the original 2,500 libraries built by Andrew Carnegie. So, yeah.
Eventually it will be an event center. So you can hold an event or visit or something.
Yeah. We can totally go to a haunted ghost convention there.
Oh, that'd be fun.
Yeah. I've been up to Fort Wayne. They used to do events at the Masonic building there for ghost hunts. And man, was that place paranormally active. So
I imagine because aren't those more just like people? It was like a club men would just go and hang out at.
Oh yeah, essentially that's what Masonic lodge is.
Yeah,
and there may be people that will fight me on it and saying it was really mysterious. No, my dad was one. I went to them frequently. I've read their little handbooks. They're just they would perform little ceremonies that were slightly biblically themed, and then they would go drinking.
Okay.
Actually, no, I take that back. Their lodges are dry, unless they have a liquor license. It depends on who's a member. Okay. But yeah.
So I imagine a lot of them were happy there.
Oh yeah, they had a lot of fun.
There after they've passed.
Yeah, especially in the earlier part of the century, like I'm gonna say pre-1970s and earlier, it was a huge social thing. Yeah. That's what I mean. The Flintstones what is it? The Water Buffalo Club that they have in that. That's a really accurate representation of what all those social clubs were like.
Yeah.
And they were very important to people.
Yeah. And especially veterans.
Yes, especially veterans, but you had social clubs for any facet of
Yeah.
society back then. And they aren't so popular now. Everyone's kind of moved online. Everything is Reddit. That's where our
Right.
Yeah,
social
well,
clubs are.
they were fraternities for adults, basically. I
Yeah.
mean, you had
Oh,
to
yeah.
be recommended.
Should we
I
start
don't know if
one?
you'd. I mean, they were organized. It was harder to get together probably back then. Now, it's Reddit or your favorite Facebook group or whatever where you can
Yeah.
meet up with people and talk about whatever it is you're interested in.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'll take this reminder to say you can join us on Facebook at Hometown
Yes.
Haunts. That's where our
Okay.
digital
My
club is.
imagination is off running now.
Oh,
Like we need to buy a nice, real big, pretty house, and we can have sleepovers, and we can have ghost
Well, wasn't there just a
tours
TV
and-
series that was like about a lodge or something? I forget what it was called. My husband watched it. It started on Fox. It was called Lodge something. What was it? Lodge 49? And it was like about a failing like old fraternal lodge but it was a
Uh-huh.
comedy and it was supposedly quite good. I knew a couple people that really liked it.
Oh yeah, I'll have to watch that.
that hits really close to home. So, yeah, Indiana and a lot of the rural states still have really thriving lodge cultures
Mhm.
because that is, with a lot of the farming communities, still the easiest way to get in touch with everyone is go to these events. In larger cities like Cincinnati
Not so
and
much.
along the eastern seaboard, yeah, those Masonic lodges are gone or
Yeah.
dwindling. So,
Or it would be nice to have a space where people can come and like have a D&D night if no one wants, like if they don't have a space in their house to do it, or
mhm. Oh yeah,
uh,
that would be the place to do it.
or just they have like a writing group or something.
Mhm. Yeah.
Obviously, I'm bored right now because I have nothing to do. Not
We
that I
will
don't have
go-
anything to do. I have plenty to do. I don't know what to do with my life at this point. So my brain is off in all sorts of directions.
Well, you'll be happy to know that the Tome Bookstore does a lot of social events like what you just mentioned.
Oh, okay.
So one night sometime, we'll all go to the Tome
Okay.
and hang out there. They have a coffee house
Okay.
and
Didn't you say they had a writing group too?
they have a writing group.
Okay.
I think they even have a D&D group that meets every week to play.
Oh, fun.
So they do a lot. I love them. They're such a great asset to our local
Yeah.
books group. So,
Yeah.
yeah. All
Okay.
right. On to our final location this weekend is the Garnet A. Wilson Library in Waverly, Pike County, Ohio. And this one I actually am starting with a quote. So me and my buddies were riding the elevator down to the kids' book room when we heard an old woman talking, writes Mike Hawk. We looked around the corner and there was an old woman that looked like she was in her late 70s. She had her hair pulled up in a bun and was wearing an old red dress down to her ankles and black shoes. You could see straight through her. She had an old book and handkerchief in her hand. When we saw her, she paused, looked at us for about 5 seconds, and all of a sudden she just faded away. After that, we scrambled up to the main desk and told the woman on duty what happened. She told us that we weren't the first people to give her reports on the same occurrence that week. And this was an eyewitness account submitted in 2005 to the Ohio Exploration Society. And you can read that online on their website, which is one of the sources for tonight's show, which I forgot to mention at the top. That'll remind me to say all the sources when we're done. So, the Pike County Free Public Library was founded in 1939. The first librarian was Miss Madison Irwin. From 1939 to 1978, the library was part of the Waverly High School, but in 1978, the library was moved to North High Street in Waverly. Finally, in 1985, the library was moved to its present location at 207 North Market Street in Waverly, Ohio. The library's present location was a generous gift by J.B. Wilson, and he requested that the library be known as the Garnet A. Wilson Public Library of Pike County in honor of his wife. Now, no one knows when the reports of the Lady in Red at Garnet A. Wilson Library started, but she has been witnessed there by various staff and visitors through the years. She's described to be an older woman with her hair up in a bun, an ankle-length red dress, and black shoes, as Hawk described. Also, she is described to be carrying a handkerchief and an old book in her hand, and she may startle the staff and visitors since she looks and appears human and there until you actually try to approach her, and then you realize she's translucent and she just fades away when approached. Like the ghosts in Portsmouth and Clifton, Garnet A. Wilson's bibliospirit is that of a friendly nature, caring for the books and the literature lovers who visit the libraries they call home. So, on that note, I do have one request for our listeners. If you're in Kentucky or have lived in Kentucky and you have stories about haunted libraries or really any places whatsoever, please write in. We know Kentucky is haunted. There are just very few stories that make it out onto the internet to be shared. I love Kentucky because it is so quirky. There is so much stuff. It's a diverse group of people in history, and it really gets knocked around when it really shouldn't. So if you have Kentucky stories, please write in. It's just, we need to share them. Also, the sources, and then we can talk about other libraries we know of. So the sources for tonight's show, because I was remiss and I forgot to cite them, our personal adventures on December 17th, 2022. Also, the Two Park View Manor. I don't know why I was saying Parkland. Also, Cincinnati Magazine, Cincinnati Refined, the Ohio Exploration Society, the Cincinnati and Hamilton Public Library, the Pike County Library, and the American Libraries Magazine. Those are all of our different sources for tonight's show. So, any local libraries around you when you were growing up, were they haunted?
I had never, for me, no. But, I didn't really pay attention to those things then. But I didn't. The only one I can think of is the one in Ghostbusters. And their creepy librarian in the basement.
I completely forgot about her. She's at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
Oh
my goodness, Christina, did you know of any haunted libraries?
I don't know if it ever came up. I mean, we certainly spent a lot of time in the library from when we were growing up at Mount Washington, and we used to go to that library that's right next to that giant water tower. And all the different libraries that we went to over time, I don't remember ever seeing anything untoward, but I kind of wish there had been. I mean, the library was actually one of my favorite places.
There we go. I unmuted myself. Yeah. I love libraries. I remember somewhere, and I should have asked James before we went on the show. He did that entire show talking about the woman who was murdered at the library that they investigated a few years ago. I don't remember which library that was now.
I don't either, but I loved listening to him tell that story at Marietta.
Yeah.
That was cool.
Yes. He's such a good storyteller. And you can see him this March.
Yes, at the Frogman Festival.
Yes.
But I actually have two library stories. One of them I wrote about for my first book, which is Haunted Hoosier Halls, Indiana University. And I'm not going to actually read from the book because that would require me to go find a copy of the book. It's just buried under stuff right now. But the Herman B. Wells Library at Indiana University Bloomington is known to be haunted, and it's haunted in the very similar way as the Clifton branch is, where books will be thrown off of the stacks. They'll be found feet away from where they're supposed to be. You'll hear phantom footsteps in some of the stacks. I think one of the floors, I want to say it's the third or the fourth, is super haunted and has this very creepy vibe when you go to it. I kind of remember it because it's also the stacks where all my East Asian language resources were. It was that particular floor, and it just always seemed really dimly lit or just never enough lit, and felt like something creepy was following you through, but I don't remember anything actually illicit ever happening there. I mean, it had the urban legend that it was slowly sinking like a foot every single year, but no, that's complete bunk. But that was that. And then the other library that I know of, and mine is secondhand information because the person that it happened to was my mother. And that is the Ashtabula Public Library in Ashtabula, Ohio. So this one's famous in Ohio for being actually buried. No, it is built on a graveyard, or at least a grave site. And I know this is true because my mother found that grave site.
Wow.
By accident. So, rolling back a little bit, and I don't know the history of this library, but I know in the late 1950s, early 1960s, they were working on the expansion of the library, and my grandfather was the architect in charge of that expansion. So he was out there with the digging crew, and they're starting to make the big pits to be able to put the basement and all the supports down first. And my mom goes out just curious to see what got trudged up. And she finds a femur. She didn't know it was a femur at the time. She just goes, it was a really long stick and it had knobs at the end. And my grandfather, who was a very smart man, looked at that and went, oh, drat. So
That's not good.
That's not good. So he calls the cultural resource management, which are all the anthropologists and archaeologists that will come and look at sites if you accidentally find human remains that are of historical value. And there was rumor that it was a Native American burial ground that Ashtabula Public Library is built on. That is false. It is some of the first settlers of Ashtabula whose graveyard it is built on top of, because they found the hand-hewn casket nails around where this man's skeleton was, and then some very, very rotten coffin boards. So, and you can actually do, this was back before carbon type dating was really a thing, but you could still date things by the artifacts that are found with the body. And because of these particular way that the nails were made, you can tell that it was around just after the Revolutionary War. So you're looking at the late 1700s when this person died, it's about when people were living in Ashtabula, and he had people pushing west because it's the Connecticut Purchase area. So yeah, the Ashtabula Public Library is also known to be haunted by a lady in gray, and is kind of confirmed to be one of the older librarians. So that was around in, I think, the 1940s. She's also another older woman who haunts the library because that's where it made her happy.
Yeah.
So, and just like with Clifton and I just forgot the other one. Wilson, Garnet A. Wilson. They're kind of the stewards of the library, and they're just keeping an eye over it to make sure it's just working the way they think it should.
What I like about her, one, she's in a red dress.
Yes.
Because you don't hear that very often. And
No.
she makes eye contact.
Yes.
Like, it's like she's trying to approve whether or not you should be there.
Yeah. I like how she's always carrying a book as well.
Mhm. Yeah.
Just maybe it's her favorite one.
I wonder if anyone has noticed like a title or anything. That'd be kind of fun to know.
That would be
Her favorite book.
Yeah. Wonder what it is.
Yeah.
Maybe it's Frankenstein.
Oh yeah, Mary
That'd be
Shelley.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one thing, since we're talking about libraries, I mean, the library photos of Cincinnati's old library that was built in 1874 went viral because it looked amazing.
It was.
And
Yes.
it had spiral staircases and all of these like very tall stacks. I mean, the photos are absolutely amazing, and it was torn down in the 1950s.
Mm-hmm.
So
I mean, it probably was a nightmare for accessibility.
Oh, it was. Have you ever
Yeah.
read the accounts of people who worked in that library?
I'm sure they
No.
got hurt a lot.
Oh, it was hell.
Yeah.
So
Jeff and
those
I have
huge
talked about
windows
it.
that you see were the only natural light in the entire building.
Mhm.
Everything else was gas lamp or candles.
Oh my
And
gosh.
because of that, they constantly got poisoned by all of the carbon monoxide being produced in the air. So everyone was constantly getting sick. And people, if you were working in the basement or the lower floors, they were passing out from the heat. So it beautiful photos. It's the Mercantile Library is very similar in feel.
It's a great
But
place to visit and listen
it
to
is.
lectures, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, the actual working in the original public library in Cincinnati was not enjoyable at all.
Weren't
And
the stacks metal?
they
Yes,
were.
cast
And
Yeah.
people
iron.
fell from them
Yeah,
a lot.
Jeff and I have had multiple conversations about this place. Because he it's kind of a bone of contention with him. Maybe Jeff sees he goes, yeah, it was beautiful, and everybody's wondering why it's not still there. It's because it was dangerous.
Well, I mean, I
It's
think that's
outdated.
it's too bad something couldn't remain of it because it
Yeah.
was so beautiful with the marble floors and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, as libraries go on, their purpose changes and how
True.
people interact with media changes. And so what do you do with, I mean, this thing had like busts of Shakespeare in it, and
It
Oh,
used
yeah.
to
an
be an opera
incredible
house.
Really?
Mm-hmm. It
Did
was
all of that just end up in a dump, or
a
someone's
lot of
gotta
it got
have
they said some of it, some of the statues are somewhere. Let me see. This article might say, because I know at least one of them is on display. Like some of the
Yeah.
stuff was saved.
Yeah, a lot of stuff like that would have been saved because it would have been high value. So people may have taken it for their homes,
Yeah.
may have
Mhm.
taken it for their there were so many theaters and opera houses in the tri-state
Yeah.
area, a lot, or churches too. It could have just gotten repurposed there. While Christina looks up information there, I did look into the Mercantile Library, and they say on their website, they say, we may be haunted because one of our librarians did die here in the 1930s, but we
Ooh.
don't actually have any ghost stories. Like, no one has shared ghost stories of running into anybody or books falling off the shelves on by themselves or anything.
Uh,
So
We
there's
will
a
have to investigate there because Greg Hand actually just did a talk there.
oh
Like last
yes,
weekend, I think.
yes,
Last
yes,
week
yes,
sometime.
yes. It would be really neat to go. I've never been there.
Oh,
It's-
really? It's a great place.
it's a
Yes,
beautiful place.
I hear lots of good things about it. I just
Yeah,
haven't
I've
made
been to
it
a couple
Walnut Street.
like Books by the Banks. Unfortunately, didn't do it this year, but every year when you are at Books by the Banks, they used to have a really nice cocktail party up there
Oh,
for all the
nice.
authors. And so I've been to a bunch of those, and it's a great time to kind of look at the different things. And they do some really great talks. Like Kevin Necessary spoke in there about political cartooning, and Greg was just there talking about his book. I mean, it's a great library to support because they have a lot of, if you're a member of the library, you get to see these lectures for free.
Yeah, that was something I wanted to point out for our listeners who were like me and did not realize this. It is a member-only library. It's not a public library. So you pay every year to be able to go visit it. And then, yeah, you can check out books and see talks for free. Kind of like our
No, go ahead.
oh, it's just like our nature preserve. That's actually out towards you, Jen. It's
Yeah.
membership, but you can go visit it at any time of the year and enjoy the events.
Jeff used to have a comic book group that met there,
Oh,
and I went to one once when I read Watchmen for the first time, and it's quiet. I think we might have been the only people in the building. It was it's just a beautiful place, and you almost kind of feel like you don't want to touch anything because you don't
yeah, it
want to
kind of
like ruin
has that
it.
museum feel to it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
Jay used to run that.
huh?
Jay used to run that.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
The graphic
Yeah.
novel. They would review them every. Was it how
Yeah. I
often was it?
remember
I can't
that.
remember.
I want to say they met every month.
Yeah, they
I only
did.
went maybe once
I don't know
or
if they still
twice.
do.
Yeah,
No,
I don't
because
think
of
so.
COVID.
Yeah, well, that'll
Oh,
explain it. Yeah,
Yeah.
So,
and
I
I'm
mean,
not
that's when they
finding
stopped.
quickly finding where, but there was something that was from that library that's on display somewhere, but I'm not finding it quickly. I'll put it in the show notes,
Okay.
Okay.
or maybe in the group.
Yeah.
So I used to, Christina, you may want to cut this out. I don't know how publicly I want to say this, but one of our former reporters from the Enquirer, I think, runs it now. and does, I think he's responsible for getting like the speakers and everything there. So we might be able to reach out to him and see if we can't do a ghost tour there or a ghost hunt.
That
or
would be
something.
very nice. I would love to be able to do that.
Yeah.
I'm looking
Maybe
up
have-
where it is now.
Maybe have Jeff do it because I was not on good terms with him. So,
Oh.
yeah. So just cut that out.
Okay. Good to know.
But Jeff gets along with everybody.
That is true.
Yeah.
Unless you're talking about Star Wars.
Unless you're talking about Star Wars or Star Trek.
Yeah. Oh my
Mhm.
goodness.
The newer ones, not
Yeah.
yeah. He's very passionate.
Oh wow. I bet I could get a bunch of writing done in this place.
You could.
I'm looking at photos. I'm sorry.
It's
should not
really
be doing that.
it's really a neat place.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But maybe we can do an investigation there.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Or at least at the very least. I had a membership for a while, but yeah, COVID kind of
Yeah.
wiped it out. I think his lecture, Greg's lecture, was just like last Thursday or whenever it
Oh,
was. I
okay.
had, it's either coming up or happened. Time is fluid,
Yeah.
and I couldn't do it because it's when I have class.
Yeah.
Because I teach on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Yeah. Well,
I've been there for a couple of things. I just can't remember what. Man, it's been so long. I do know like the entrance to it is kind of hidden. It's kind of hard to find.
Yeah.
It's
like-
almost like a secret door.
Ooh.
But it's not really. But if you're not
Well, it's
looking
like at
for
the
it, you'll
top
miss
of.
it.
It's the top of a building. Like
Mhm.
you go in and it does, and it's like everything is closed. That's
Yeah.
at the base.
Oh man, how cool would it be to have your own private, like they used to back in the day, all the like the Vanderbilts would have their own library. This is that kind of feel, like it's someone's house.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
We did
and
a
they
sketch
just-
session there for Urban Sketchers,
Mhm.
and the library was not too happy with us when 40 of us walked in and
Yeah,
we're sketching.
yeah.
I'll have to share them. It's a neat place, like
It
sculptures,
is.
and
Yeah.
it was a great place to draw.
I guess I mean, because it's not a cheap membership. It's kind of like an exclusive club to be a part of, just to be able to go there. Don't you think?
It sounds like it.
Yeah.
I'm looking it up right now.
Oh yeah.
So-
how much is a thingy?
I thought it was like 60 bucks. Or
Subscription?
something.
Let's see. An individual membership is 65 and a household
Oh.
membership is 110.
I was close.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's not
So-
It
bad,
probably was
actually.
60 when I signed up because it was a few
Yeah.
years ago.
Yeah. It's for what it is. It is a it does make it a little bit more exclusive, but
Mm.
I mean, you get to be with books. Like
And I think,
Awesome.
don't they have some rare books there?
I think so.
Yeah.
Though they don't have the books that are bound in human flesh like the University of Cincinnati.
Can we
Anyway.
see those? Will they let us see those?
No, they won't let us see those. We need to know somebody who works in
Not
that
even
particular
like through a
library.
piece of glass or something.
I don't know. It'd
That'd
be really cool.
Yeah.
So on to our hometown haunt.
On
We
that note.
digress. And please send us hometown haunts. We love hearing people's stories.
Especially from Kentucky. Kentucky, I'm calling you. Jen, please share
Okay.
the hometown haunt.
Okay, this is from Deborah. When I was in junior high, I was studying in the living room and my parents went to a visitation for a friend. Our telephone was in a nook in the wall in the dining room, and I looked over and the cord was swinging back and forth, and I hadn't been near the phone. The lady we bought the home from passed away in the living room. We knew because a family friend of hers and ours was visiting and went to the kitchen to fix tea for both of them, and when she returned to the living room, the woman had passed away. I don't think I took a breath until my parents returned home.
Wow. That's delightfully spooky. Thank you,
It
Deborah.
is. Yeah.
Wow, yeah. I wonder if there was anything else that happened at Deborah's house.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I'll have to inquire.
Yeah, that's one. I feel bad. It's always kind of unsettling when you know you live somewhere where somebody
Mhm.
has died and you don't
Mhm.
know quite how to process that. And then
Especially
suddenly
in junior
the
high.
phone, yeah, especially in
Yeah.
junior high. And then suddenly something that is moving that shouldn't be moving happens. That is scary.
So I may have told this story before, but two things. I grew up in a 100-year-old house at the time in the 80s. I always thought that house was haunted, but my mom never confirmed that one way or the other. But then we ended up moving out to the suburbs in St. Louis, and I didn't know this until we moved to Cincinnati, that the previous owner had died in the house.
Ooh.
And Mom deliberately did not tell me that because it would have freaked me out.
Mhm.
But my brother, he was about, I don't know, 5 or 6. He said he would roll a ball down the hallway and it bounced into my parents' bedroom and it came rolling back out.
Ooh.
No one was in the room, and we had this could have been my cat, Mr. Kitty. I mean, cats freak out over anything anyway, but he used to come out of my parents' bedroom in a terror all the time, just, running down the hallway like, I don't want to be in here. I don't know what I just saw, but I'm running.
Mhm. Wow.
By the way, I have a really weird story that just happened in the house a couple weeks ago.
Oh,
In your house?
Yes. So
Tell.
Please share.
I was in the bathroom, and you know how your pets always join you.
Oh, yeah.
And so, and we had just been talking about, I think on the show, about those sparkly balls.
Mhm.
Oh,
And so I was sitting in the restroom, and my cat Conan came in. All of a sudden, this sparkly ball rolled in, and Conan started playing with it, and he batted it around. And I said, "Troy, did you do that?" And he said, "I didn't do anything." He was like, "What are you talking about? I haven't been able to find that ball since. He batted it around and it disappeared, and I don't know where it came from."
Oh, wow.
It's not a toy you recognize?
No, I don't remember buying a sparkly cat. I mean, people buy stuff for our cats all the time, and
Right.
it could have been something really old, but it was really weird because it like flew through the door into the bathroom, and the cat was playing
Wow.
with it. And I asked Troy if he'd done it. He kept saying for like the next day, "I didn't do that. I didn't throw that in there." So I don't know. He might have been playing it. He's shaking his head no right now. He had no idea what I was talking about. So
I wonder
Wow.
if it could have been one of your kitties playing with him.
Oh.
your
well,
former kitties?
Thunder is good at throwing things, but I had not seen that toy before, and we looked around. I looked under the couch and and I have not been able to find it.
Oh, wow, that's
It was
weird.
about
Wow.
this big, and it was electric. It glowed. I mean, it had lights
Yeah.
in it.
Yeah. Oh,
Oh,
wow.
like the little toy balls we play with on the
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
with the kids on the ghost hunts?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Wow. That is bizarre, and I love it.
Yeah. So next time you're over, Kat, you need to pay extra attention
Maybe it was
Okay.
a
see
cat.
if there's anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll pay more attention, and I won't take my Benadryl, so I'm not woo-woo-y. You know how you get on Benadryl? Because
Mhm.
I am also allergic to cats, but I can hold
No.
it for a little bit.
Mm.
I won't wear my contacts. That will help.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Your eyes
yeah.
won't be itchy.
Yeah,
That's the
I
problem
will.
with 3 now. It's like triple strength.
Yeah.
Yeah. But when I come by the next time, I will wear my glasses and I'll tell you if I see or sense anyone. And if I can figure out where that sparkly ball went.
I know, we haven't seen it anywhere. I'll have to look
Yeah.
again because I looked under the couch, and
Yeah.
because it kind of looked like someone it's like it gently came in like someone had tossed it.
Yeah.
And I heard Troy walking around the kitchen, so I asked him, and he said, "Oh, I don't know what you're talking about." It
Right.
could have been a prank too. I don't know.
Mhm.
I'm just saying.
Never
haven't-
rule out the prank.
Mhm.
But that's
True.
that's
He's
that's a
shaking
really
his head still. He's
Nope.
but
Yeah. He'll never
I don't
admit to it.
exactly.
I will say both of these stories are bizarre and I love it. So
Yeah.
yes, thank you for sharing, Deborah, and thank you for sharing that story, Christina. That's great.
Do you wonder, is parts of Kentucky kind of like West Virginia where they just keep to themselves and don't spread their business?
Oh, yeah.
Do you think that's why there's
I
not
think
a
that's
lot of
part
lore
of it,
coming
yeah.
over there?
Yeah.
I
And
think
it
any
also,
rural community is.
Not true.
like
Yeah.
it's a lot of communities that are close knit. It doesn't matter where in the country they are and what
Mhm.
their ethnic makeup is.
Mm.
They're not going to really tell their stories outside of the community too often,
Right.
which I understand and totally
Yeah.
respect that.
Yeah.
It's that's just the way it is. And usually when there's stories, it's because somebody in the community has told somebody outside the community, and then it spreads. So
Yeah.
I understand that people don't always want to share those kinds of stories. And you know what? You have every right to just keep that to yourself. That's
Yeah.
it. I am sad, but I also can't make people share stories that they don't want to.
But if
So,
you would like to,
but if you'd like to, I am all
Yes.
ears, and I would love
Yes.
to like just not collect it because that makes me sound, it makes us all sound really strange, but
Mhm.
preserve it basically because that is a part of Americana that we don't get a whole lot of information for, I guess is the thing. It's there's a lot of communities where I wish we had more ghost culture talked about because it also goes hand in hand with death culture and how we remember our dead and memorialize them. And not everyone is comfortable talking about the dead as candelier as I am. Like, yes, I'll talk about funeral arrangements till the cows come home. I'm fine with it. Not everyone's like that. I'm a weirdo. So,
I'm like that with murder stories.
yeah, it's and not everyone's comfortable with that.
No.
And I know that what we're interested in is not common, I guess. But I do find it's really helpful when and kind of comforting when you're sharing death stories because and ghost stories and ghost lore because that is a very strong part of your community and identity, how you treat your dead. And yeah, it's we do need more representation basically of how
Yeah.
people are treated for it to become more comfortable to talk about.
Right. Or even to know like what happens after you die. Like most people, like say you I'm sorry for saying this, but if you walk into your house and you find a loved one that passed away, like
Mhm.
how do you know what to do?
Mhm.
Most people don't know that. And like for me, when my mom started like at the early stages of her or her COPD, I'm like, Mom, have you done any funeral planning? She's like, I'm not dead yet. I'm not ready to die. And
Right.
it wasn't about that. I'm like, Mom, I'm not trying to kill you off or anything.
Right.
I want you to plan for it so I know what you want and what uh to do
Mhm.
because it's hard to figure that out when you've just lost someone.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
overwhelming
Yeah.
and not not to get too off the subject, but funeral homes, some of them, not all, really love it when it's just chaos because you're going to make decisions that are not always the best for everyone.
Right. Because you're
So,
so emotional.
yeah,
Yeah.
some places will prey on that. Not all of them, some of them. So, one of the things, and I know I just made a post about this on Facebook just with my private account, which was make sure you have your living will and
I
have
saw
your
that
death
post. That's a
plan.
good idea.
Yeah, because they are extremely important. If you have
Mhm.
pets, you want your death plan spelled out so your loved ones know what to do with them. Like, so all of our dogs have homes. People have promised to take them once if we die unexpectedly. So we
Aw.
know what's going to happen. Um, there are cases of people passing away and their pets being put down basically because no one in the family knows what to do with them because there were no plans. So the
That's
Humane Society gets a lot of them, a lot of the especially older animals too. Yes, it's very it's not a light topic at all, but
that's how I ended up with Betsy. Her owner passed away
yeah,
and no one wanted to take her, and
yeah,
she's mine now, and she's about 21 years old now.
yeah,
So yeah.
That's amazing. That's
yeah.
so
That
great,
is
Jen.
amazing.
I know. I'm worried about her, but she's
Oh,
still kicking.
yeah.
But no,
Well,
I
on that
agree.
note,
Yeah.
I
But
want to
yeah,
say one more thing.
yeah.
They're called If I Die folders.
If I die
That
folders, yeah.
Yes, and that has become more of a prevalent thing with this obsession with true crime and everything.
Mhm.
So it's great for everybody to have an If I Die folder with
Yes.
like all your passwords in it,
Yeah.
with all just any kind your pets information, what you want, your wills, your living wills, your DNRs, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
you know, or in case, you know, you encounter someone creepy who's being mean to you and you end up missing,
Yes.
you know, so it's great to have those things.
Yes. It's actually very comforting to have those things
Agreed.
because you
Yeah.
know what's going to happen. It's kind of reassuring in a strange, timey-wimey way. It's rather reassuring to know what's going to happen. And so
Pictures of your tattoos.
Yeah, pictures
and
of
scars and
tattoos.
birthmarks. Yes.
Yeah. Any distinctive things, that's if you go missing.
Mhm.
But also make sure that your friends and family know where to find these folders. Don't hide them under your mattresses or squirrel them away in the attic. You want them
Or
in
put them in the
places.
freezer.
Yeah, put them somewhere that somebody's going to, if they are in your house, they will run into it. Because it, yeah,
And
you don't
tell
want to
them
hide it.
Tell them repeatedly so they don't forget.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because that happened to my mom and my aunts when my grandma died. My grandma had showed them where the paperwork was, but when she died, they couldn't remember where it was, and they didn't find it until after the funeral.
Oh no.
It
I
was
hope they had a good memory.
Freezer. It was in the freezer. Because
Well,
my grandma, she grew up in the Great Depression, and that's, you know, that's where you would hide your stuff. No one's going to look in the freezer.
well, the freezer is going to be fireproof back then.
That too.
And yeah, your documents aren't going to really decomp at all being in a freezer.
Yeah.
One would hope. Yeah, it makes sense.
It does.
It does make sense. But yeah, so
on that note,
on that note,
yes,
we kind of tangented away, but so
don't
everyone
be afraid to talk about it.
Yeah, never be afraid to talk about it. So if you want to talk about it, you can share your comments to us at Sin Cabinet Curio on Twitter and at Cincy Cabinet of Curiosities on Instagram, and join our Facebook group at Hometown Haunts, where we can all share our do this in case I die stuff. Just be a death positive community there. Yes, and thank you everyone for joining us, and remember to stay safe, stay spooky, and good night. Bye-bye.
Bye.